Well, welcome to another episode of My Harlow My Life, and I'm really pleased to say that after a few technical hitches from both of us, we're finally there, and it's great to see, of course, ex-Harlow manager Kevin Warren joining me tonight. But Kevin, I suppose we'll start off as I normally start off, and just say to you, how's it been for you in lockdown?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, David. It's, I appreciate it. I've always, been involved with Harlow Town, and I've always kept an eye on the results since, not being at the club and that. So, I feel privileged to come on here and sort of share my views. So, lockdown's been a strange thing, and like it has been for everybody. I've been really lucky with work. I've managed to obviously avoid furlough and stuff like that, and I'm a lot busier than I've ever been. Just my line of work, sort of facilities management and managing buildings. So obviously there's a lot to do with, COVID-19 and setting buildings up. So I've been ever so busy at home, just starting to go back into London again now. So it's been crazy, but as I say, I've been lucky that it hasn't affected me that much at the moment.
So I suppose, Kevin, I suppose most people that there are sort of new fans out there as well. But I mean, how did you first get involved with Harlow Town?
So it's quite a low. Well, from what I can remember, so I was a youth team player at Leyton Orient when Tommy Cunningham was there. So Tommy was my youth team manager. I think it was while I was a first year of YTS. He then moved up to be one of the senior coaches for the first team. And from there, once I've sort of got released from Leyton Orient, I've sort of been around Dagenham, Redbridge and a couple of other sort of teams in non-league. Gave up for a little bit, lost the sort of passion and the heart for football, and didn't really want to do it anymore. Then I just started playing for one of my friends for Barking FC, and we actually played against Harlow. And I think we were towards the bottom of the league, Harlow towards the top. But we had one of those games where we had a big back four, and I can't remember. There was someone with a really long, Neil Moore had a really long throw, and he used to kept launching it into the box, and we defended it every single time. And after the game, Tommy was manager at the time. I think maybe his first season, maybe his second season. He came up to me and said, "Look, I've been looking for a left back for a long time, and I didn't know where you'd gone and where you disappeared to." And I sort of said, "Well, to be honest, that's only my second game back." He said, "Well, if you want to come to Harlow, I'll take you on straight away." And so we had a couple of phone calls, and obviously me and Tom had a relationship from before, and that was it. I joined from there.
So what was he like as a manager then?
Tommy he's a really, really good manager. Really good manager. He, from the coaching, the discipline, he's up there with the best that I've been with and worked with. My only criticism, and he'll know this, and he can't help himself, is his passion on the sideline puts people under pressure on the pitch, and he lives and breathes every kick that every player plays with, and I feel sometimes that just puts a bit too much pressure on some of the players. But Tommy was he's a very good coach. He gets his opinion and his point across, and he from a discipline point of view, all the players that I played with when I was at Harlow, it was a very disciplined team, and we did what we did. Every bit of coaching session he did on a Tuesday and a Thursday, we took into that Saturday. Maybe sometimes too structural. That's an opinion of some people. But with the squad that we had, and sometimes the injuries that you had, it was the best that we could work with at the time. But one thing, he wouldn't allow us to sort of deviate off the plan, and good managers stick to their plan, and that's one thing Tommy did.
Well, I know what he's like when he was standing behind the back of me and we're losing games of football, and I know you say how passionate he is when he's standing behind the back of me when we've lost. What was he like in the dressing room at, say, half time or full time? Plenty of teacups getting thrown about.
He had his moments. It's quite strange with Tommy. Win, lose or draw, he was more based on performance. If we lost 2-0, but we played quite well, and the effort was there, and the commitment and the game plan we stuck to, but it just didn't work, he'd be okay. and we've won games under Tommy and didn't play well, and that's when the teacups were thrown, and that's when he goes off on one because of he wanted things done a certain way. And yeah, even if we scraped a 1-0 against a Barton Rovers at home, if it was a terrible performance, he'd be in the dressing room for an hour after the game, even though we'd won. So it was very much more about the performance rather than the 3 points. It was the structure that we were working to, and that was his passion. It was about if you performed and worked hard, it was okay. If you didn't work hard and you I don't know, won the game with a bit of luck, he didn't like that.
So can you remember what your first game was when you came back to Harlow? Sorry, mate, lost you there for a minute. I'm saying, can you remember what your first game was when you went back to Harlow?
Sorry, you just paused there for a second.
Mate, I was going to say, so mate, yeah, we just lost connection there for a minute. But can you remember what your first game was there for Harlow?
Do you know what? When I watched the Marvin interview, I was a bit like, he's going to ask me that question, and I think it was Wildstone away, and they were ground sharing something like Edgware or something like that. I can't remember. I remember it was a tough game. I think it might be 0-0 or 1-1 or something like that. Maybe even lost 1-0. Can't remember, but I kind of remember that game, and I'm thinking that was my first. That might have been my debut for Harlow.
And what
You're going to tell me what it was?
No. I was going to say to you, what was that like?
I'd be interested to know what it was actually, but yeah, I think it was Wildstone away, and it was a tough game, like Tuesday night as well. It was rain and wind and all the other bits.
So what was that? What was that like though? Was it a different style of play from being at Barking and that, or coming into into Harlow?
Yeah, it was. Well, Harlow were a lot better team at the time. As I say, Barking were towards the bottom of the league, and I think Harlow. I think we were pushing playoffs that year. I think we might have been mid-table, maybe behind in a few games, but we had some quality players. I think obviously like Mark Salmon, Marvin Samuels, Leon Lee. Just a few names that I could think of at the time when I came into the team. There was some proper players there. Neil Moore, Curbs might have been playing. Ryan Kirby might have been playing that day. And it was a different feeling. I was joining a team with ambition and a team that should have been going places really.
So was you with the club then from that day right the way through to your management stint?
No, I did come in and out. So I was there for probably 2, maybe 3 seasons. It goes a bit blurry. There's obviously under Ryan Kirby, I was like player coach. Kind of assistant manager as well when Curbs was actually player manager. So when the Macclesfield at home 2-0, so I was on the sideline. So obviously Curbs was playing that day, so really it was me and Ryan Kirby's old man that was running the sideline, if you like. And Curbs was very much, if you're seeing things on the sidelines, you make some decisions because obviously he was playing, so he needed to concentrate on his game. I was assistant. I was also reserve team manager for quite a while. Same again under that Kirby's league sort of. And I was still fairly young at that point. Young, maybe 30, 31. So I was sort of on the bench a little bit as well. Came on against Wimbledon when we beat Wimbledon 2-1 away. So I was sort of in and out of the team, but obviously just getting a little bit older and struggling to keep up with some of the younger kids playing. But I came in and out, and then obviously that fell away when Curbs went. I think I may have left shortly after that. And then obviously the big changes behind the scenes. I still don't quite know what was going on. Obviously Marvin Samuels ended up getting the job at some point. And then obviously with things didn't work out for Marvin, obviously Tommy brought into the club, and obviously Tommy brought some of the players that was playing under him all those few years ago. He brought them back in, and that was the point where I became manager.
So what was that FA Cup run like as a player then? The one leading up to Macclesfield, or as a coach as well. What was that like? It
was brilliant because I'm just trying to think. We beat someone away from home, Burgess Hill. We beat Burgess Hill. Jamie Richards was part of that team, and James Bunn, Sam again, another really good team that we had there. And I mean, we went to Burgess Hill. I think there might have been a similar level, maybe a level above them, but we played really well, and certainly the second half. And we must have took 200-300 fans down there. It was unbelievable. And I always remember there's some pictures flying about that still might even be on my sort of Facebook page or something. But the crowd, they had the toilet rolls were on the pitch, and there was a good good following that was following us at that point. All the crowds were pretty good. And then that led us. We had one or two decent results. I think we had a luck of the draw cup. A couple of rounds. We had some good draws at home, which led us to that. I think I can't remember who the interview was with. It might have been Chapo's one where we were sitting in the clubhouse, and we were that one team away from Leeds. Leeds at home, and it ended up being obviously Macclesfield, which wasn't the best of draws because they obviously. I think it was non-league teams bringing more fans than what they brought on that day. But it was good. It was a great experience to get to that first round. It was obviously the furthest we'd got in a long time. And just to be part of that, it was amazing. And obviously there was, I can't remember, 3,000 that came over to Harlow that day. Yeah. Which was great to see that new stadium full up for once.
So what was that like, though? As a player, coach? Leading up to that game, although it could have been Leeds, it was Macclesfield, but still a big game, still sort of first round of the FA Cup. I mean, for non-league players, and what was it like for you? What was it like for the dressing room?
Everyone was absolutely buzzing. We loved it. You get that feeling. Obviously, most non-league players always wanted to be that professional footballer, and for whatever reason, just hasn't quite worked out for the individual. And that day you felt like you was a pro again, and even leading up to it, the buzz around the town, people having to buy their tickets before the game, there was putting an extra burger stand in the corner. It was a proper feel to like basically what you dreamt of, really, as when you wanted to be a pro playing in front of whether it was 5,000 or 20,000, but it had that feeling, and the club was buzzing at that time. There was a lot of good people around the club, and the fans were on board, the players were on board, and I think Brian Kirby really got the fans and the players and the community feeling going, and that we was riding that wave that allowed. Really, it's a shame that the club never really kicked on from that because it was in the position to. And it's a shame that it fell away slightly after that.
I was speaking to Ray Wickenden in the episode before yours, and he was saying the same thing. Why do you think that? Why do you think that would be? That the club hasn't sort of jumped forward. I mean, he was saying from the game against Leicester and and Watford, and then he was saying again against Macclesfield, and then the semi-final against the final win against Sudbury, and then the final win against against Hornchurch in recent years. And he said, we had sort of 3 or 4 opportunities, and he's just not jumped forward. And he said a club the size of Harlow, he felt, should be at least in the Conference South.
100%. And I think if anyone gets the answer to this question, they need to be running the football club, because we've all said it and we've all seen it. We've seen it from chairmans, managers, supporters. Harlow Town is a massive, massive town and has got a lot of people in it. And when you see the likes of Billericay, just because they get a rich owner, that Glenn Templin, put a bit of money in, a lot of money in, and all of a sudden they get 2,000, 3,000 people over there. And maybe it's never had that massive cash injection, which has this, the town fully promoted with all the sort of the council on board and the MPs on board. I know that there's a little bit of, MPs do get involved a little bit, but I think it needs everybody involved. And I think it's always had something, but never had it all come together at once. And whether it's a cash injection that allows the finances to advertise the football club, to put some structure in place to get the fans to the ground. I think it's all come at different stages. The youth setup was never there when I was there. There was no youth teams, and then all of a sudden youth teams come in, and then there's no There's no structure with the first team, and it's just never sort of come together all at once. And I think that's probably one of the biggest problems. Is there's always been financial restrictions, and that goes for a lot of non-league clubs, and probably half the reason why a lot, Hornchurch, back in the day when they had all the money, they were getting, over 1,000 people at the grounds. They don't anymore. It does go away. To sustain the non-league, the fans, you always got that core or hardcore fans that always sort of turn up. But it's how you attract all the others. And personally, it's a structural point of view. I think you need your youth teams. You need, all the way down to the kids, all the way up. And I was hoping that's what the 4G pitch would bring. And it probably has. Same again. I don't have an insight to the club now, but that's probably brought in so much revenue to help the club survive. And that now you need to sort of kick on with the amount of people that come to the games. How do you keep the fans inside that stadium, one, entertained, and two, to come back week on, week off? And sometimes that is having a big budget to attract that bigger players and the bigger names to continue, pushing on up those leagues. And when I was in charge, I had a good budget, and I did manage to attract some sort of Conference South players, and we did have good crowds when I was around. And I think to sustain that, you need that success, you need that promotion, and you need to go again. And it costs you even more money to go again, and it's difficult. You need deep pockets, and I suppose in a way you also need a sensible head. And if you've got a sensible head and no deep pockets, you can't push on. Otherwise, you put the club into a lot of debt, and you can't. It's not a model that you can sustain. And you've only got to look at the Hornchurches, the Canby Islands back in the day. The Chelmsfords have obviously, never quite got where they should have got. There is so many clubs that have done it and haven't sustained it. And I think that just goes to show how difficult it is to achieve, consistency and moving up those leagues on a regular basis.
So even in the days when you was playing and stuff, crowds wise, I know what we've got a big reputation as a club as having a really, really good crowd following and a loud crowd as well when they're all in. Was that the same sort of thing for you? Do you feel that yourself as a player?
Yeah, and obviously I started at the athletics ground, and obviously not so much there. They still made noise there. They still had, you're still getting 150. Try and push to 200 on a big game, maybe 250, 300. But it got lost because of the running track and all the other stuff. But then, as I say, we had some good spells when we was in the Ryman Prem. Under Curbs, and we were getting good crowds, probably same again, 350s pushing 400s. And when the crowd got behind you, as I say, that the FA Cup run, the Burgess Hill away, there was a couple of other away games that we played in that FA Cup, and the following was unbelievable. There's a couple of coach loads following us down, and then obviously all the fans that obviously went on the train. There was people coming up from Cornwall. It was a lot of dedication there, and it's a great vibe to be on. And I think when we beat Wimbledon away, that I always remember that coach journey back, one of the best coach journeys I've ever been on. That it was brilliant because the bar area was great. It was packed. It was one of those days where you felt like a pro again, or you was part of it, because it was the same again, 2,500, 3,000 people there. And it was one of those coming back, and the fans were on board, and obviously it was just a really, really good time to be at the football club.
So what was that like though? So tell us a little bit more about the trip back.
Just lots of alcohol and lots of singing, because I think we secured safety that day. I think Wimbledon were obviously flying high. I think they were top, or they needed one more win to win the league or something like that. It was still about 4 games to play, but I think we secured safety in the Ryman Prem that day. So it was a bit of a double. 1, we beat Wimbledon away in front of a big crowd, and then 2, we secured safety. And obviously no better place to do it. So I think the coach journey, a couple of hours, it was good fun. It was singing. We were obviously, any player that had a song, someone like James Bunny who had a song, Kenny Davis at the time, and Clarkey, they all had little songs that the fans sing. So obviously the players were singing their own songs, if you like. So it was really good time to be at the club.
How do you think? With that sort of result, was it other days like that as well? Or was that sort of far and few between? You know, the sort of those sort of feelings coming back from those sort of games.
I think that they were, they were few and far between. If we survived with about 3 games left or 2 games left or whatever it was, obviously it weren't a great season. If you look at it like that, I think we were, at that time there weren't a big budget at the football club, and so we struggled to compete with some of the big clubs in that Ryman Prem. But I still think by surviving that season was a kind of a success. But same again was always going to be a bit of a struggle. So, as I say, with the FA Cup run, it gave us that. They were the good moments. You kind of always remember those good moments. But yeah, there was also times where obviously we did struggle against some of the bigger sides that did have that budget and just had the better class of player, if you like.
So when the club turned around to you and said, "Look, or when you got a whiff of what was going on, and they said, "Look, we're moving from the sports centre to Barrows Farm." I mean, what was the excitement like with players and and sort of fans in the club? I mean, was there a lot of excitement because they were moving to a more compact ground, or was there apprehension? I mean, what was the feeling like around the club?
No, I think there was a good atmosphere again at that point. Whereas the athletics ground was just getting a bit dated. It was getting a bit old, and obviously we were seeing all these images of what was being built and what was being created. And same again, there was a massive buzz around the ground and around the players, around the club. And even you kind of felt it a little bit around the town, certainly around the supporters. They were looking forward to getting in a proper football stadium rather than one with an athletics track. And it was good to be around the club at that point. I always remember because obviously the pitch weren't the greatest at the other ground. And then Tommy took us to the ground, and they'd obviously the pitch was like an absolute carpet, and we were just walking on that thinking, I can't, how lucky are we going to be able to play in this football stadium, and be part of the football club was unbelievable. And it was just same again, just a shame that transition didn't bring in. We had an opening game, I think, was it supposed to have been against Leiston, that ended up playing it at the athletics ground because the ground weren't ready. But then we ended up, I can't remember what the opening game was, but there was a few people, there was a good crowd, but same again, that season didn't quite, I thought there was going to be a good 500 following rather than the 250, 300 or whatever it was at the time. So yeah, it was the same again, but it was good. It was, the stadium was amazing compared to what we was sort of playing in and what we was used to. It was really nice to be there.
So you carry on playing, as you said, been backwards and forwards. But I mean, you was talking about Ryan Kirby, and what was he like as a manager?
He was really good as well. He got his point across as well. He knew what he wanted. He was a bit more of a sort of put your arm around your type manager. Where Tommy was an old school manager, he told you what to do and you went out and done it. But Ryan was the other way. He gave us a bit more freedom to play, and he was a good manager. And he put your arm around you. He knew when to put his arm around you. Same again, he was so committed as a player himself. It was hard not to be committed around him. He had that vibe, he had that energy. He wanted to take that club forward, and I kind of feel that when he went, there was a bit of the heart of the club got ripped out. He'd been at the club a while, he'd made a lot of appearances, and it was the wrong time, and he was going through a tough time as a manager, and that, I know that feeling as well. And I've kind of felt we needed to stick with him, and it didn't happen, and it didn't quite work out. But as a manager, he was really good. He was a good coach again. He was obviously a young coach, and I felt given time, he would have been really, really successful.
I mean, Glenn came in after him. Was you still around then for the Glenn era, or was it?
Yeah, so. Yeah, I helped out Glenn with the transition because obviously he brought a lot of wear players in at that point. So I was sort of part of that transition period. Glenn was good to me, actually. He gave me, same again, a coaching role, and I actually played a few times under Glenn as well. I think Harrow Borough away, and he said, Kev, I'm going to start your centre mid. And I was like, you're crazy. But we actually won that game 3 or 4-1, and it was a good time. But Glenn was a very good coach as well. Very... He had his ways as well. He had his way that he wanted to play, and he got his message across. And I like Glenn. He was a good lad, and he done the right thing. He brought his own coaching team in. He brought his own players in. And that's what you need to do if you're going to be successful. And I think he did. I don't know what his record was at the start, but I think he got a few good results. I think it might have drifted off a bit again. But yeah, he had the right philosophy, and it was good playing under him as well.
So a lot of changes of manager in a very short period of time as well, which I must admit, because I'm not used to. I'm used to one name and one name only. Do you know what I mean? But,
yeah.
But it does seem strange. So it was Tommy himself, then Ryan Kirby for looks like for maybe a season after 2 seasons, then Glenn for a season, then Anthony came in. Anthony Anstey come in, but all I've got is 2009 written in front of me. So then I've got Marvin Samuel 2009, 2010. And then yourself. So I mean, very, very much a very quick turnover. And I mean, was you there for all of those, or did you go away and then come back?
Yeah. So I think maybe when Glenn went, or under Glenn, I might have gone away at that point. I'm not sure if I lasted the full length under Glenn, as just helping coaching out. Obviously, I've always had work commitments that I've had to sort of put first, that sort of pays the wages and pays the mortgage and stuff. So it's I don't think I lasted the full Glenn era, or if I did when Glenn went, I might have gone at that point, or it might have been the end of the season, and then things changed from a chairman point of view, or who owned the club and stuff like that, and it all just went a bit strange. So I think I went away at that point. So I was never part of the club when Anthony Anstey was there, and I wasn't part of the Marvin Samuels era either. I came in after that.
So, was you expecting a phone call when Marvin was let go? And I mean, was you sort of expecting a phone call from Tommy, or did it come completely out of the blue? Or I mean, was you doing your coaching badges and etc. elsewhere?
I can't remember what I was doing at that point. I think I was still involved. I don't know what club I might have been involved, just helping out, doing a bit of coaching and stuff like that. So I think I was still active. I can't remember where I was. But Tommy was obviously looking to buy the club, and I knew that. And Tom, I knew Tommy on a personal level as well. And Tommy was saying, look, I'm looking to buy the football club, and this is what I'm aiming to do. And if I do, I want to sort of bring some of the guys that I can trust, the people that I work with, people that I know that will be dedicated to improving the football club. And so it got to that point, and he ended up buying that club. So I kind of knew the phone call was coming. I suppose same again, if Tom never bought that football club, I would have probably never come back, or who knows. But it wasn't as if it was on my mind to come back. But obviously with Tommy being there and coming back, then I was obviously interested to return to the club.
So how did your first season go, or the season go?
Well, we came in. I think. Well, I wouldn't say halfway through. We were 3/4 of the way through. We were technically already relegated. We were rock bottom. Probably only had about 10 points, if that, maybe 12. And then Tommy just said, "Look, I'm going to take charge. I want you to be my assistant, and I'm going to get some of the old boys back." And Spencer Knight came and played. There was just a few old school sort of non-league players, just to bring a bit of atmosphere back again. There was a lot of young players at the time that were obviously struggling as well. And what we tried to do was merge the two. So Danny Chapman came back at that point. I know I always remember the first training session, and we was all sort of very unfit because we hadn't played. But all within 3-4 weeks and a few games, I think we lost a couple, and we then started getting, I think we won a couple, and everyone's sort of thinking, are we going to go on this amazing run that we allowed us to survive? But we were rock bottom at the time. But what we did, we brought a good atmosphere back. And I remember, being in the clubhouse again, and the clubhouse started getting lively. And even the short period of time that before Tommy bought it was getting a bit dated again. Even Barrow's Farm it needed a lick of paint. It needed a freshener. And give Tommy his dues. When he bought that football club, that's what he did. And I even had my wedding reception at the football club, because that bar upstairs and all the wood floor went down, and it was lovely. It was such a good, same again, good atmosphere in the bar downstairs with the supporters bar. He brought that back into the football club, and it was good to be back at that point.
Well, I suppose the question to ask you, and I mean, and you know this one's coming because we've spoken about it already, but I mean, a lot of people turn around to me say on a Monday night, well, you know, the situation is when you're a manager at Harlow, you know, Tom tells you, you know, how to play the game at half time, full time, during the game, end of the game. And you know, I asked Danny Chapman that question, and he gave me his answer to that. And you know, and then Ray Wickenden, you know, he had his opinion on it as well. But I mean, you're there, you're in the forefront of it, as the same as what Danny is. I mean, how true is that? You know, was it a case of he was telling you how to play, or was it a case of, you know, you actually, you know, was playing the way you wanted to play?
Well, when we first came back, I was I was assistant to Tom, so we played the way Tom wanted to play because he was the manager at the time. And you know, my job was to help get some players in. You know, I had a good relationship with a lot of players. I knew a lot of players in non-league at the time. So I helped Tom sort of build that back up again from you know, the club was rock bottom at that point, and we got reprieved at that point. We got lucky. Someone's ground weren't good enough or whatever it was, and we got reprieved. And at that point, Tommy said, "I don't want to manage anymore. I want to, you know, I'm going to open this position up." I think he interviewed a few people, and obviously said I was interested at that point. And he said, "Well, what would you bring if I give you the job? What would you bring?" And I said again, I said, "I've got those contacts. If you give me a budget that I can work with, I'll bring in some good players." And he gave me the job. But the whole time he was, you know, at the time he was the owner of the football club, and you know, he's going to want certain things done his way. And being the chairman of a football club, you need to sort of respect that. And he was sort of saying, well, if you get X amount of players put in front of me from a, you know, from a contractual point of view or finance point of view, I'll get them, you know, I'll get them signed up for you. And so it was a team effort we had to go from rock bottom to try and win promotion the following season, and you know, and convince people that, you know, the club was going into administration and really struggling, and we're going on knocking on doors at Conference South saying, "Come and join us," and they're like, "You're going out of business." And you know, we had to bring that back, and obviously Chapo came in as my assistant, Christian Wheeler came in as my coach. Same again, both had contacts in the night, and we had to build this team. I'm not even sure. It might have been 3 or 4 players may have survived from the season before. So we had to build this team from scratch, but it was tough. It was tough that summer, getting the players in, getting them fit, getting them playing how I wanted them to play. And that's one of the answers that you want to get. How was that, and was I challenged? I played the way I wanted to play, and the way I wanted, the formation I wanted to play. The type of football is what I wanted to play, and Chapo and Christian Wheeler backed me at that point to play that way. Tommy had an opinion, always had an opinion. Would come in at, you know, wouldn't come in the dressing room at half time, but he would come down at half time. You know, Tom is a very experienced man in football, and what you needed to do was take on board what he said, and you can either throw it out the window or you can go in the dressing room and use what he said to try and improve the team at half time. But no means did he ever pick the team for me, and he never picked the way I wanted to play and the formation. And the proof in that was, you know, under Tommy we were restricted as a team. You know, you couldn't throw the ball out from the back. I was a left back at the time, but I wasn't allowed to go and get it off Jimmy Hassel, the keeper. You know, got told off if I got, you know, but the pitches were bobbly, and 9 times out of 10, if you threw it out at the back, you gave it away and the other team scored. And that was Tom's philosophy, was, well, why do that if you're just going to put yourself under pressure? But then, you know, I was a believer that we had a decent pitch at Barrows Farm, so I changed things. You could throw it out the back, and you could play the way you wanted to play. I'd like to think that we played good football under myself for that short period I was a manager. And I've had that from, you know, I've had supporters say that. I've had players say, you know, we played some good stuff under you. So I was my own manager. I weren't a puppet. But did that lead to my downfall? Potentially. You know, there was times I always remember one. We beat Malden at home. Malden were quite a decent side, and we beat Malden at home. I think we beat them 4-0. Might have been a cup match. Can't remember, but we played really, really well. And at the time, obviously, Tommy and John Barnett was obviously involved. And I went upstairs. I was a big smile on my face. I was like, what a performance. I brought in Scottish guy, played right wing, Ferguson, like unbelievably quick, good player. Brought him in, and that was, for me, was one of my pinnacle performances. I think we played really good football. Leon Hunter played that night. He got injured. Leo Roger played. He was top class that night. And we just had, I think I had the team that I wanted, and we played the way we wanted. And I got a little bit of criticism when I went up into the boardroom. A couple of players got criticised, and I didn't like it. And we had a heated discussion, but it was, no, I disagree. A lot of the time we agreed with everything. And I think Christian would always back me up, and even Chapo to a bit. At that point, I was a little bit like, I expected to go in there and go, Kev, well done. And I didn't get it. And then that season we had a good cup run. I think the trophy was even better. Woking at home 2-0 and lose away. And same again, they were both in the Conference South, but we were going down there, and supporters were expecting us to beat these sides. We were Ryman North at the time, yet there was expectations for us to turn over these Conference South teams. And that's what I felt I built up, which is great. I feel, and I did have players there which were playing Ryman Prem and maybe Conference South the season before. So rightly so, there was expectation there. And same again, got behind in our league games, which weren't good. And then the dreaded, 2-3 losses on a spin. People started talking. The conversations with Tommy weren't going as well as they was. Then there was, shall we change players? Should we move players on? But I was backing the players at that point. I was saying, no, I don't think that's the right thing to do. And it just got to the point where it became a bit of a struggle. And at that point, actually, my work, I was working for a Japanese investment bank, and that was full on. They bought out part of Lehman Brothers when Lehman Brothers went bust. And I was sort of trying to juggle my day job, and obviously I was spending 4 hours on the phone while I should have been working, and I was doing Harlow Town stuff. And same again, Chapo's working his cab and ringing up players, and Christian was also working up in the city at that point, and we were flat out. And at some point, and I remember sitting down one evening with the wife, and the wife turned around and said, you're changing, you're getting stressed, you're just not yourself anymore. And I think we then went on to lose, I think it might have been to Grays 1-0 at home or 2-1 at home, stuff like that. And I went and had a chat with Tommy and just said, don't think it's not going in the direction you want it. It was, and it's all in the last month or so, it's gone tumbling down. I said, I can't commit the hours that you expect of me. It's technically it's a full-time job to be Harlow Town football manager, and I didn't have that time, and as much as I wanted to commit that time, I just couldn't, because for financial reasons. And in the end I said, well, personally, I don't think I can do the job that I need to do. Tom had his opinion, I had my opinion, and we said, look, let's leave it at that. Let's not, we had a relationship, we go back years, me and Tommy, so why sort of have a bad relationship or end up having a row or having it just fall away, when by mutual agreement we just said step away, see if someone can take on that season to get it back to where we needed to be. And rightly so, and that's what happened. Chapo took it over with Tommy's help, and Christian, they stayed there, kept most of the players. So I'd like to say that a lot of those players were my players that got the side back up to where it needed to be at the end of the season. I took a step back for a few months, but I did come back towards the end just to help out, sort of director of football. Same again, Tommy wanted me around to be, but I just couldn't commit that time anymore, and that was it. So the question, I wasn't his puppet. Did that affect my being at the football club and being the manager potentially? But when I was there, I'd done my things the way I wanted to do things.
So do you think sometimes then that he gets thought of in the wrong light then sometimes? Do you know what I mean? Do you think he's very much the I think I always describe him as sort of I suppose if he was an animal, he'd be something like a hedgehog, very prickly on the outside but soft in the inside. Do you know what I mean? He does so much good for a lot of people. He helps out people here, he helps out people there, does a lot of great stuff as well. But then when it's, sometimes as well, he's got that little bit of a prickly edge to it, and most of the fans and most of the football world or non-league world see that more side of him than they do of the other side of him.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Tommy's got that side to him. His passion for whatever he does, and his commitment is full on. He doesn't do things half-heartedly. It's full on. And I think sometimes that may be perceived as something that he just wants to do, or it's Tommy's football club and not anybody else's. But he doesn't. He does it for the best of the football club, or certainly his opinion of what he thinks will work. And then there is maybe a bit of a stubborn side to Tommy, that he wants it done a certain way. He'll do it a certain way, and if it works, it works. If it don't work, then he'll live and die by his decisions. And there is that element to it. I suppose there's an element of, do we all know how to run a football club? We don't, and maybe Tommy falls into part of that bracket, but he's learning it because he's never owned that football club before, so he's learning why he's doing it. And there's always an opinion. There's always going to be someone that thinks it can be done a different way, no different on a football pitch, and that's what football's about. It's about opinions. And as I said at the start, I think if you ever got that model where the chairman and the manager and the supporters and everyone's pulling in the right direction, I think that's when the club will go places. And I think there's always something not quite right, and it's hard to put your finger on it. But for me, Tommy will always be passionate about what he does, and if that's owning the football club, he'd do it to the best of his ability. And if it's managing the football team, it's managing, and that's what he is. Tommy is that. And I think anyone that thinks that Tommy won't talk to you, or I think if you're big enough and brave enough and go up to him in the bar, he'll tell you how it is. And maybe maybe something that Tom don't do, he doesn't shirk around his answers. And maybe people like to hear the fluffy answer and not hear it in your face answer. But that's Tommy. That's the way Tommy is. And maybe he's not that sort of fluffy person around the media, or needing to be to keep that atmosphere always like a bubbly atmosphere. Tom will tell you how it is, and it's perceived differently by different people.
So going back to you, I mean, if you had to pick one sort of massive highlight for you as a player for Harlow, and one massive highlight as a manager for Harlow, what would they be?
I think as a player, it's going to be a strange one, but same again, the supporters will remember it. We won a trophy. The club hadn't won anything for a while, and we won. I think it was the East Anglia Cup. I think we beat Saffron Walden at home 1-0 or 2-1 again. Same again, Curbs was part of that. Mark Salmon, I think Marvin Samuel might have been, Kenny Davis. We had a good team, and that was over at the Sports Centre. And that was a highlight for me because we won a trophy that day, and we'd always been like mid-table or pushing playoffs, didn't quite make playoffs because we won a trophy. And I always remember that. And it was towards the end of the Sports Centre as well, so it was nice to, even it weren't the biggest of trophies, but it was something. And I always remember that. So that was one of my highlights. And that with Wimbledon away and the Macclesfield at home, they were probably my three big memories.
What about as a manager?
As a manager, just trying to think. My first game, Grays away. Julian Dix was manager of Grays, and I think they had a pretty decent budget. I think they might have been favourites that year, and we went there and won 1-0. And for a manager, the keep a clean sheet, played well that day as well. So I always remember that. I think maybe debut as a manager, and I always remember that. And then we turned over a few Ryman Prem sides. I think Maidstone at home 2-0. Good crowd there that day as well. I think they were Ryman Prem. I think they were pushing towards the top at that time, and we brought them to Barrows Farm. I think that was a trophy, maybe the one before we went out to Woking, and we played really well that day. 2-0, I think we won, and that was a highlight for me. I think the crowd might have been up to 800 odd. And yeah, we would go and play. There was a few games for that FA Trophy. I'd like to dig out some of what those games were, but I think we turned over 2 Ryman Prem teams, and so I always remember doing that, and that was always remember that was good.
So Danny took over from you. I mean, was you surprised of, with Danny's tenure at the club? Sort of 9 odd years. I mean, was you expecting it to be a, maybe as everybody else was sort of only lasting a season? Was you expecting it to be maybe another season and somebody else coming in? I mean, and how well you put personally is how well do you think he done in the time he was there?
Well, his record speaks for itself. So he done incredibly well. Obviously, when he took over from me, he was raw. He was probably more raw than what I was. At least I'd done a bit of management and certainly, helped Curbs out, helped Tommy out. I'd been reserve team manager, so I'd done a little bit more management than what Danny had. But same again, Danny's a very passionate guy, and he could get his point across, and I knew he'd get his point across. He was a no nonsense centre half as a player, and I knew as a manager he'd be a no nonsense manager. And at that time, it's probably what he needed. The players needed a bit of a kick, and Danny's the sort of person that would do that. So yeah, he obviously ended up doing well, and yeah, nothing surprises me in football. And obviously he went on to be there for 9 years, which in any non-league setup or team is a massive achievement. And obviously he got a few promotions within his time, went on some good runs. So yeah, you always judged on your record and stuff like that, and he done a really good job.
So have you been back since? Been back to see many games since you left?
I haven't. As I said, I did come back for a little bit towards the end of that season, and same again. Then obviously work took over again, and I had to sort of down my football tools, and then I helped a few friends out. Went over to Ilford Football Club, helped them out for a little bit. It was just when I could sort of help people out, I did. I spoke to Chapo at one point. He was looking to bring in like a youth development officer or a youth trainer. So he asked me to come back and help out, but I just couldn't commit to it. And I was then trying to look for a manager for him to help him out and put some people in at youth team level. But yeah, I've not been back, and I live out in sort of Southend, so it's not round the corner. So really, those midweek games, which is the sort of games I'd like to go to on a Tuesday night, if you like. It's just tough to get there on time and do it properly. And but I will do. I'll probably give Christian Wheeler a call, and he lives this way as well. Maybe we'll jump in the car one Saturday and come over and come and have a beer with the supporters. And it's always been one of those clubs. And even when I was there, my parents used to come to the games. It was a family. A lot of the players brought their, the families were involved. Certainly, same again under Ryan Kirby. A lot of the girlfriends used to come and watch the games. There's a good community feel, and I'm sure if I came back, and there'd be a few people that I'd like to say hello to again.
Well, I suppose you've got a hope for a Tuesday night game, Harlow versus Southend at Roots Hall, and you'll be all right.
That's it. Perfect. That'd be perfect. Yeah.
Essex Cup. Yeah, no problems whatsoever.
Yeah, Billericay, anyway, any team like that. So I'll always look out for the result. It's one of the first things I look for in the, in the non-league paper, or if I'm looking at the non-league results. I always look out for Harlow. It's one of those. I spent a lot of time at that football club, and I dreamed to see it in the conference, and I dreamed to see it, go further than that. And hopefully one day it will. I think it just, as I said before, if anyone's got that magic wand that can bring all those things together to get that football club where it needs to be, then they need to be running that football club, because it's a big town. It's a big football club when it wants to be.
Happy to see the pitch go to 3G though, because you said it was a lovely pitch to start with.
It was a lovely pitch to start with, and I'm an old school. I was an old school footballer. I played left back. I weren't no frills and skills. So actually, the worse the pitch, the better it was for me, because it slowed wingers down and it allowed me to sort of tackle people. So the better the pitch, it didn't work in my favour. And I'm always a grass pitch person, but I'm also. I'm quite financially astute, and I know what brings money in, and I know what you know, things need to survive, and you've only got to look at the amount of football clubs that have put it down, and it makes a world of difference. For the final, you know, you don't want to see the football club struggle, and you don't want it to go downhill. And if that means putting a 3G down or 4G, and getting, you know, the youth training on it and all stuff like that, then it needs to be done. I'd like to see football played on grass. You know, that's just the old school part of me. But I know the future for football clubs, they need they need it down so they can make revenue on it. And it's a shame. I think any club that's got an amazingly rich chairman that can maintain a football pitch, which is very, very expensive. And if you've got that, then great. But if you can't maintain that football pitch, then I'm afraid it has to be a 3G.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Kevin, we'll let you go. A massive thank you for joining us tonight. I really enjoyed the chat. Really enjoyed
pleasure
talking to you again, and wish you and the family all the very best. And hopefully, we'll see you maybe next season down at Barrows Farm, or maybe even at Southend if we get drawn against them, or Billericay in one of the cup competitions.
Yeah, 100%. I'll make some effort next season to pop over and see you guys, and yeah, hopefully it's a successful season for Harlow.
Yeah, I hope so. Magic. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.